here's my question. Looking at how ComScore identifies non-human traffic, that's another one of my new alphabet soups, NHT. Looking at how you do that and looking at the variability across publishers, how long do you think it will be before the industry mobilizes and really puts in place safeguards that lower fraud, non-human traffic rates in the next tier? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One is that the unfortunate thing about the fraud game, let's I'll call it fraud in this conversation, is that it's an arms race. And you have the industry, the good actors, the white economy, the sort of like the legitimate economy, working to eliminate fraud. And you have the bad guys working to get around whatever the good guys are doing, right? So we have to remain ever vigilant. I think this is going to be an important year because, I've been saying sort of tongue-in-cheek, 2014 is the year of fraud in digital. It's
combating fraud.
Well, yeah. It's the year,
right.
That's the issue.
Yeah,
2012 was the year of viewability. All the other years are the year of mobile. The IAB's initiative, the traffic of good intent. There's a lot of focus on the issue on the part of the players that need to come together and focus on it. So I think we're going to start to make some progress this year. But the other thing I want to say is that there's two things going on here. There's perpetuators of fraud, and there's good actors that are trying to avoid the fraud. And the more that we all kind of understand sort of where the fraud happens and how we can buy or how we can avoid it in the planning and buying process, then the better job we can do of not being affected by it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's, for a moment, move away from viewability, which, as I said earlier, is got some small overlap in all likelihood with fraud, but it's separate from fraud. And let's talk a little bit more about measurement, broadly speaking, and how the mechanisms to weed out non-human traffic or fraud affect the way data are produced for third-party measurement.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I won't let that stop me from answering.
Do you want me to clarify?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sweet.
Then you'll like the answer better.
We have extra recording time here. You can take another shot.
So what I was referring to, and I was hoping you were going to jump right into it and spare me having to explain it, was when the MRC looked at variances in measurement, and it was specifically for viewability, but it has happened in other cases as well. The decisioning of where the measurement vendor takes out what is determined to be non-human traffic or fraud or bots or whatever lovely word we want to assign to it, that affects the counting going forward. So talk about, broadly speaking, how that plays into all the different measurement systems that you are an expert at.
So, and in the absence of that clarification, that's what I would have gone to.
That's what I thought you
I know. So,
got there.
So Matt mentioned, and I kind of thought Matt was going to give me this question also, the question of basically the disparity between the viewability percents by the different reported vendors. Where am I supposed to look now, Matt or Cheryl or the imaginary audience?
There's two kinds.
You're good.
So George Ivey at the MRC has theorized, and the MRC's, not a week goes by that they're not accrediting a new viewability vendor. There's at least a dozen that are accredited right now. The MRC has theorized, George Ivey, the CEO, executive director of the MRC, has theorized that if everybody does everything in the same order, addresses and eliminates non-human traffic, eliminates bots and spiders, and then does the viewability dispositioning, right? That all the vendors are probably similar with respect to the dispositioning of viewability for a specific event. That the differences come in from two things: where in the process we respectively exclude the non-human traffic, and then what other services we provide, right? So for example, if if a verification service is doing blocking, where they're providing brand safety services, where if the inventory is in unsafe content, they block the ad from going. Well, how do you treat that? Is it a non-viewable ad? Is it a non-impression? I mean, is it an, so if everybody, the theory is, if everybody does everything in the same order, the viewability scores will converge, because George believes that the dispositioning, once you get down to an impression, that we all make is similar. So if you have 10 different viewability measurers looking at the same impression, now then you have the problem of 10 pieces of code on the same ad. And so, but assuming we can control for that, if you have 10 different suppliers making a viewability disposition on the same impression, the idea is that we would all make the same disposition at that level, at that kernel of discrete measurement. I tend to agree with them, actually. And I think, so one of the things that we've done is that the MRC has stipulated that the first thing you do is you remove the fraud or the non-human traffic, and then you report on the net impressions, and then you make your viewability disposition. We didn't used to do that. Quite frankly, we were removing a lot of the non-human traffic in the viewability disposition, and this is part of why fraud and viewability tend to converge or overlap. Cheryl was describing it earlier when we spoke as a Venn diagram with a little bit of overlap. Because some of the impressions we were deeming not viewable were not viewable by reason of being non-human. Now we'll take the non-human traffic out up front. You can see how much there is, and then you can see what the impressions are left and how many of them are viewable. So this is helping us all sort of to standardize how we do what we do. It's going to, I think, remove a lot of the uncertainty in the marketplace, because you should. You'll either see the vendors start to converge with respect to the metrics that we show strictly for viewability, or you'll be able to get a pretty good understanding of why there's a difference, and when somebody stands out from the pack, why that is.
Fantastic. I think anybody who either came in the room or clicked play on BTV was wondering if we would be able to combine high level and then getting in the weeds. Just saw proof, I think, that we hopefully accomplished both. So please join me in thanking Josh Chasen, CRO of ComScore, and again, Cheryl May.